Hello friends and welcome to Led's Lap Guides. If you are new to these guides, we'll be utilizing our very own Apex visualizer that gives you an overhead view that will help you shave those tenths off your time. This visualizer actually just recently received an upgrade. If you're familiar with the lap guides and how we use the visualizer, you'll see in a couple of sections on these tracks that it can at times handle two opposite turns back to back and multiple radiuses. We should do even more to help you link quick turns in succession with more precision, get you through those sections a little bit faster. So often our racing lines just aren't exactly as precise as they should be, so here we're trying to give you that extra edge for sure. Whether you want to watch the whole video with every breaking down of each turn or just focus on a corner or two that's giving you trouble, these two lap guides that we have here for you today are your resource to use however you need to help you get the best time possible. This week we have a couple of great combos in my opinion. The first is Group 4 race cars at Interlagos, 5 laps on, do you believe it? Can it really be? Racing medium tires. Incredible. How long has it been? I don't know. For the actual race itself, it looks like a wide variety of cars are quite competitive, as in our races yesterday proved that there were G70s, Ferraris, and even our friend Victory was making the Swifty work really well. All these were competitive, and even a couple others. But for quali, we ended up going with what was dominating the leaderboard in the top 100 at least, which was the Citroen GT. For this track guide, you'll see that keeping your lines really tight, really tidy will be extra important, with the right amount of brake pressure being extra critical in the middle sector especially. For race C, we have Group 3 cars at Trial Mountain. Again, even more viable options it seems for both race and for time trialing, as the leaderboard is full of different cars and the tracks are full of different makes and models. It's great. We went ahead for our quality to go with the M6, the endurance model. This car track combo has a ferocious pace. Only the bravest will be able to put up some of the best times. Risks will have to be taken to get a top time here. As always, rotation and early throttle inputs will be critical to maximize your potential on this track. And without any further delay, let's see how we break these corners down. So we are braking. Brake marker is just a little bit before the 50 board. We're going to be braking in a straight line until the turn-in point, which we will discuss in a little bit here. Bring up the visualizer and let's get that beautiful thing up. Okay, so let's look at this here. This is a really good depiction of what we're trying to do here on this first section. There's so much time here, really is. So when you're coming through here, you're braking hard in a straight line all the way through here, right? As you get to the turn-in point, you begin to trail brake off, okay, and you're decelerating all the way to about this point right here. I do think that if you need to be at your slowest right here, and as long as you have the car with a wide entrance and the car pointed in this direction, you're going to be able to get on the throttle, especially with the Citroen, and not have to lift. Gearing, short shifting to third through here, and then short shifting to fourth even is a good idea as well. So there is that. So again, braking a straight line, get the car rotated nice and wide, get the car pointed at this part of the track, like right over here. But then once you get through this part, and of course, you know, our line here depicts it being right on the asphalt. We're definitely cutting, you know, both of these massively in order to get the best time, shortest route kind of thing. Let's look at the actual track here. Look at that line. So coming through here, banging down the gears, down to third, down to second. So basically, once you get under the bridge, so you're in the shadow of the bridge right now, once you get under the bridge, that's your turn-in point. You want to be nice and wide through here. Stay in second, use trail braking to make second, and trail braking to suck the car in, and you should be able to get on the throttle right now. Okay? You're on the throttle through this part, you shift up to third, yank the car steering over this way, and up to fourth, going through this. If you're in fourth through there, I mean, there is, you know how much drama there is sometimes with the Group 3 cars here. Well, I've experienced zero drama in fourth gear over that curb. I'm just here to tell you. Your momentum should take you all the way over here. And as long as you aren't turning too far over to the right when you're over that, the car will remain steady. If you are turning too far over to the right, that is when the car will start to slide out on you, and that's not so great, okay? So you saw how that goes through there. Let's get to the next turn. I'll keep it tight to the left here, by the way, as you exit. The Group 3 cars go wide because they're carrying so much more speed, but the Group 4s not so much. So you want actually a shorter route with the Group 4s. Basically, when the front tires get to this asphalt, this little escape road or connecting asphalt right here on the right, that's where the braking marker is. Let's look at the visualizer for the next turn. 90-degree turn. It has some things that isn't helping us very much. There's no banking really to speak of. So heavy braking zone through this spot. And then we're going to get... let's go... I'm going to go a little wider turn in than that, actually. Yeah, that's right. Get a wide turn in. Get the car nice and rotated because you don't want to go too wide here. You can dip your right tires onto the curbing here, but that's it. If you get any wider than that, the car is going to be really unsettled. And if you go too wide, you get a pen on top of it, which just isn't fun. You're already slower because you went out there, and you get a pen on top of it. Not worth it. It is worth it to feel a little slow through this section so you can power out of it, be on the throttle right by this point here, and out you go nice and strong, carrying good momentum. You want to slow down nicely, but you don't want to screw up too much speed because you won't make it up. So you got to find that happy medium, all right? So let's look at the actual track. So braking in a straight line through here, coming down the gears. If you need a little second gear, that's cool. Might help suck you in, but third is good as well. Plan to take all this curb on the throttle before the curb. Put 2 wheels out there, but nothing more really. Then come nice and tight. You should be able to continue to maintain a really tight line there. Again, your momentum with this Group 4 car isn't taking you out wide. All right, so we are braking just before the 50, and this also is your turn-in point, okay? Also your turn-in point right here. So we're going to treat this like a double apex. A little bit like a double apex. It's kind of a strange turn. In 5th gear, I believe, in this car at least, you're going to turn, downshift to 4th, and right before you get to this apex, you're braking still and down to 3rd. And I want you to be at your slowest mid-corner right here. That's really the key. This is how you take this one fast, friends. Make sure that you're at your slowest at this, and you don't want to be too wide to the left. Try and get at your slowest, and your slowest should be like in the 87 to 89, maybe 90 at the most, if you really, really nail it. Okay? Be at your slowest right here, then you're on the throttle up 4th gear. Exit in 4th. I'm going to go back to 3rd because this thing's having trouble pulling that gear. Your momentum should carry you way out here, okay? This skid mark right here is at the roof of my car right now. That's your brake marker. You can see it right there. So there's a little bit of gap if you're using this one, a little bit of gap also if you're using this view. So that's your trajectory there. Let's look at the visualizer for this one, and we can do some happy stuff with this one here. So this first turn is it's about 160, 155 degrees. The next turn is actually a 180 degree turn. So little difference between the visualizer and ours. There is a little straighter section right here, but that's all right. We can manage with this. So, but this really shows the critical nature of the wide entrance. So, you know, you're coming from all the way out here, getting this car nice and rotated all the way around, okay? All the way around on the throttle by just after mid corner on this one. And you really, by getting this car nicely rotated like that, you can really stomp on it pretty early. You can get the full throttle even with this car, which isn't an all-wheel drive car. Okay? And then you're gonna basically shoot to the next apex. You're gonna double apex this one. You can use a little bit of the curbing here. So even if you want to be a little bit tighter, you can still make this a double apex. Be at your slowest at this point, right here. And by then you should see the car rotating really nicely. You can get on the throttle. in second gear, out you go. Short shift to third if necessary. This car still has the torque to make it happen, so you can come on out and be pretty comfy with it, okay? All right, let's go back to the actual track to see what this sequence looks like. So this is your wide entrance, turning with these tire marks here, and you're really trying to get in just like this. On the throttle now, okay? On the throttle now, out you go. Monitoring the power oversteer, dive to this one, on the brakes again. Get the car to rotate. It'll kind of settle right here. And this is where you're on the throttle again. Maybe not fully right away, but pretty close. Clip this next apex, out in third, and then out you go entirely. All right. Braking marker for here is basically just before the end of the green AstroTurf on the left there. You see that? Just before that you get to that point. This one's hard, so we'll talk about a real common tendency for this one. So I want you to take this nice wide, super wide entrance, okay? On the brakes, heavy in a straight line. But what's really going to help you here is when you start to turn in, make sure you're using 50% or less brake pressure through this part. If you need a little first gear to help, that will work too. Too heavy on the brakes, what's going to happen is you're going to end up deep out here, okay? And that's because your front tiers are understeering, you're sliding, you're not in control of the car anymore. And you don't want to be out here because that's going to cost you a tenth or two, honestly, just right there. So be light on the brakes as you bring the car into the apex, on the throttle, mid-corner, or just after maybe, and then power out real nice and strong. And you want to be on the throttle early because it is a flat-out section coming up afterwards. What that looks like on the actual track, coming through here, down to second, first if you need it, coming around just like this, on the throttle, shifting up. This one, you want to stay tight to the, you want to stay middle. I'm not going to use the visualizer for this one. I'll save that for the next turn. But really, all you're doing, this is still a flat section, flat out section. And really get your two tires onto the curbing. I think it helps so much to rotate the car. You need a little short shift for fourth. That'll work too. And then through here you go, okay, friends? Okay, my brake marker is right here. And you probably can't see it necessarily, but it's you see there where the grass is actually worn out and then it comes back. So where it transfers from this little grading system on the right to full grass, that's my brake marker right there, okay? All right, so it is maybe just a hair past 90 degrees. And we really want, again, big braking zone, braking a straight line. And because it's the longest flat out section of the whole track, a wide entrance and early on the throttle is imperative. Once again, if you're late on the throttle, you'll be losing time the whole way up the hill, past the finish line, and so forth. But if you're early, you're going to be gaining time that entire stretch. So really critical to get a nice late turn in. If you want to use a little second gear to get more rotation, that's great. But, you know, sometimes I'm saying to be on throttle mid-corner. Be on throttle right about here. It's got to happen. And you exit in this car in third. It's really the best way to get the most, as long as you've carried enough speed. If you end up, really shaky and it's not great, then go ahead and exit in second, because that'll pull you out of there faster. What that looks like on the actual track then, this is your braking in a straight line, down to third, down to second. You're turning with the end of this grass section, getting this nice wide entrance, up to third, on the gas right here. Okay? Clipping all of this curb. Momentum will carry you out here. Of critical importance, you do want to then immediately tighten to the left. Get the line of the Group 3 cars out of your head. Stay tight to the left. You're not carrying that much speed, so you want to stay tight to the left to preserve, the shortest route to the finish line here. If you're close to the front of the grid and you're starting on the first lap, pretty close to the front or at the front, move your braking marker to the end of this this concrete barrier on the right. Start braking there, and it'll be max for a little bit, but you'll be trail braking kind of earlier. And maybe to protect yourself from a little bit of a dive from somebody, go ahead and turn in maybe a little bit earlier than you normally would, so you can protect this apex. And then really guarantee yourself a really nice exit, because thankfully the tight line here is also a very fast line. All right? That's your lap guide and turn 1 guide for Interlagos. For this little sector here, sorry to say, this is wild. This part right here is, if you have your seatbelt on, find the passenger seatbelt and then like pull that one over around you too. This thing is wild. So you really got to throw it in there. Really time that turn-in point just right, okay? So speaking of turn-in point, we're basically there right now. So you can look at it a couple ways. Maybe if you're using this vantage point, you can look at that pole over to the left that's just above me right there. That's a great one. If you're using this one, that could also be a good reference. I'm using the dirt patches or rock patches on the right here. So once I pass this little dirt patch on the right, now I'm turning in, okay? Now, the line that you want to take, you really have to be as far over to the left as possible, okay? So plan for your right tires to be on the curbing here. Go ahead and risk the pen of being too far on the inside. Risk that. That's worth it. At least while, you know, time trialing, okay? The next one then is going through here. Let the car settle. It is really wise to go ahead and lift where necessary on this part. If you feel the car is getting light, it's getting a little out of sorts, go ahead and lift some. And as you do that, you're pointing the car and planning to get your left tires on the curb here. You should be getting, very importantly also, you should be getting the car's weight transferred over to the left side of the car by this point here. So you're turning the car over to the right by this point so that you have grip on these here. If you're turning later than that, you're going to be in a world of hurt coming off there. At minimum, you'll be off the racing line. At maximum, you'll crash. Somewhere in the middle, you could still be very slow because now you have to work your way back on the racing line, okay? Again, once you're going over this rise, feel free to lift. Don't feel like you have to go full throttle. The car can do it full throttle, but if you end up going too fast here, you actually end up losing speed for this left-hander here. Really, when you get past this left-hander and after you hit the apex, you should be going from like 140 and accelerating upwards from there. If you take this too narrow, you actually end up after the apex like under 140, and that's actually costing you some time that you could probably use, right? So with that in mind, then your line through here is just like this, okay? Just like this. Okay? I'm using this brown patch at this part right here. This is my braking point. This is a left-hander. It's got banking on the inside, and it's uphill. And that's part of what some of you might realize. This turn feels a little weird. Not only because it's kind of a blind exit, but because you're going really, really fast, and you expect the car not to really hold, but it does if you time everything just right. So let's look at this one on the visualizer. In a very real way, we're looking at a turn just like this. We're trying to come in here, braking heavy in a straight line, just for this little bit here. Okay, and then immediately beginning to trail brake, and you're shifting down the gears. And really, the key here is don't get too slow too soon. Make sure you're decelerating all the way through this section so that you can be on the throttle mid-corner, okay? Mid-corner is where you're looking to be on the throttle by. We'll look at that here visually in a moment, but again, make sure that the tendency will be to be too slow too soon, like in this area here. That means if you're too slow too soon, you have to wait to get on the throttle. or you'll get on the throttle, and then on exit, you'll actually have to lift in order to make the corner. So you want to avoid any of that, because that's just going to slow you down too much, okay? So go ahead and make that nice wide entrance, but begin narrowing earlier, because there's help on the inside of the track. If you end up going too wide, I mean, you'll still make the corner, but it's a lot of time lost because there's marbles out here, and there's a little bit less banking, so you won't get the benefit of the banking on the inside of the corner. So what that looks like on the actual track is we're coming forward through here. You're probably 5th, 4th, turning in, down to 3rd, on the brakes, still trailing off, down to 2nd. And I don't know if you want to count the number of pillars, like on the left, or maybe you want to use this pillar right above my head here as your reference, but this is where you need to be on the throttle. You can see on the track map up there, it's mid-corner. You see where my point is. So on the throttle, if you've carried really good speed, 3rd gear is great to exit in. If you end up a little too slow, I'd recommend probably a 2nd gear exit in most cars, because you're not going to really carry the momentum very well. Plan to track out wide, just like this, and then get yourself over to the left side really quickly so you can prepare for this right-hander. Okay, so our braking point is right before this boulder on the left. So you got 2 big boulders, so right before the big boulder on the left, the first one. Let's look at the visualizer for this one here, this turn. Quite a bit, just like that, really. So brake heavy quickly in a straight line through here, and then immediately begin to trail brake. We'll talk about the turn-in point in a moment, because that's really key for this. You want to turn in later than you might think you need to, because you got to get the business of rotating the car done in this area right here. If you don't, then you have to wait to get on the throttle. Really, the key to being fast on this corner, it's going to be really easy to end up being on the throttle too late out here. But make sure, be committed to getting on the throttle no later than at the apex, but preferably right here, mid-corner, before you actually clip the apex. If you've done that, that is really, it's an amazing key to getting that done, okay? All right, let's take a look at that at the actual track here. All right, so 3rd gear, down to 2nd, under braking. And then I like to turn right. With these tire marks, you can see them there. Possibly, pow pow. You do have the, it's barely visible, but there is like a pole or a tree right above there. You want to turn later than maybe you think, like I said, so you can get this nice wide entrance. You're on the brakes this whole way, then transition from brakes to throttle right here. You can see how much turning we've done like this. We get on the throttle pretty much fully by the time we straightened it out, and there you go. Okay, for this one, we get to use the new aspect of the visualizer. We have this little kink, right? Before getting to the right-hander here. And so I just want to take a moment to kind of look at the line that you want to try to achieve on this one, because it's a real critical point. Again, a really important turn-in point right here, okay? So the only difference is that you're already on the left side, but let me tell you something. If you've carried good speed from the previous corner, it's going to be a little tough to keep it tight to the left on this part of the track. Really make sure you do. Even if it requires the slightest of lifts to make sure you get over to the left side here, that'll be really helpful in order to get the car rotated and on the throttle early for this part right here, okay? Also, a difference from this line and the actual track would be, don't plan to go out all the way wide here, but plan to be mid-corner, no wider than probably like the center yellow lines, okay? There's some difference there, but this is really the key part. And there's more time here than you may imagine and you may realize, okay? All right, so let's go to the actual track once again. So full throttle through here. And then as soon as the curb ends, yank it over and get down to 2nd. And work work and monitor the entrance here so that you can get on the throttle no later than this point right here, okay, on the circuit. And then you're monitoring your exit. Make sure, I would say, don't be any wider than the car being over top of the center of these lines right here. Honestly, it's huge to make sure not to go too wide to the left, because the next corner is more important than the previous one. All right, so this is a really good depiction. You really want to get tight early, but even as tight as you get right here, you still actually are going to tighten as you accelerate through this corner. So I want you to think of the apex as right about this part right there, okay? And you're getting on the throttle way, way back here. So really, where this transition is, that's legit. That really is legit. And the reason you're doing this is because you have the longest straight in the whole track. You need to carry excellent speed, because if you don't, you'll be losing time that whole straightaway. Don't you want to be gaining time on the whole straightaway? And in an actual race too, this is a huge big braking zone where a lot of passing can get done. So if you get good runs off of this corner, you can really make a lot of headway that way. So it's a quick blip of the brake right here. Get the car yanked over. I like to do a little bit of downshifting to second to help rotate the car. And then right back up to third on the throttle here. And then send it. Just total send. Don't hold anything back. All right, what that looks like on the actual track. Coming through here. Right side. Third. Yanking it over. Back up to third on the gas, tightening still, and then widening out, just like that. All right, so the brake marker for me is the left-hand turn sign right here, but I'm braking after it. As it disappears from my screen, that's when I'm on the brakes. I like a late brake here because we have a really, really long left-hander. And the wider the entrance begins, the quicker you can get on the throttle, and that's really important for going on the uphill. Okay. So what this looks like in the visualizer. Once again, a really excellent depiction of what we're trying to do. So big braking zone, right? This red is all true. You are slamming on the brakes all the way through here. And really, what's really key about this, friends, if you haven't, this is a great, if you haven't really nailed down trail braking, this is a great corner to make it happen and really practice it, because it's really long and it's a lot of benefit when you do that. So you're trail braking all the way through here, decelerating all the way to mid corner, and we'll talk about what that looks like on the actual turn here in a moment. But this is where you want to be starting to be on the throttle, and then you power through that apex and then end up wide as you come out, okay? That's how that looks right there. Real easy to get too slow too soon on this one. So don't be at your slowest here or around here. Be at your slowest right about mid corner. That's going to make a huge difference, because you want to be able to transition from braking to throttle pretty much seamlessly, okay? All right, let's check out the actual track. So coming down from 6th, down to 5th, down to 4th, down to 3rd. You're starting to trail brake in now. Down to 2nd. And if I've carried good speed, I like exiting in 3rd. If I haven't carried that good of speed, then I'll exit in 2nd. And exiting in 2nd gives me a little bit of extra rotation also. All right, so my acceleration point is in between this boulder on the left and this incredibly large tree. Yeah, so you're on the throttle here and you're powering out through here. You're still tightening and then widening as you come out, just like that, okay? So this is a flat out section. You're muscling the car up this hill, but you want to keep it nice and tight to the right there so that you can actually get this car pointed a little bit to the left before you get fully over the crest. Pointing the car over there is going to be really helpful for Number one, braking in a straight line, which is really what you want to do because the car goes light here because of this crest. Okay? And then, of course, it gives you a really nice entrance for the right-hander that's coming up as well. Okay, so this is your braking zone. This is where you're starting to brake. You want to brake before you get really crest the hill because you need some extra braking power. You can't expect the car to do it all on the downhill. It's not going to work very well, okay? So this one, once again, is a little bit beyond 90 degrees. I'm going to say it's a little bit wider of an entrance because it really should be. This might be even a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think it's necessary for us to get this visual so that we really understand how important it's going to be to stay close to the left side of the track to get on the throttle really early. And so instead of this being the line, I ended up doing something like narrowing here and then going deep, waiting for the car to turn and then getting on the throttle like that. So I actually exited like right about here instead of down here. So let's look at the actual track again. Going down, under braking, right through here, down to second. I like some first gear, get the car rotated, and I want to be on the throttle no later than now. I want to see that exit. I want to see that exit in the far right side of my screen. Up to second, and I'm powering out of here. You know what I mean? Powering out. Braking marker for this one is just before this huge compression point in the bottom. So it's like 1, 2, 3 blue squares before the track kind of goes level, okay? On the visualizer, we can look at this. This is once again, a little bit beyond 90 degrees and get this nice wide entrance. You can carry the speed. You can get on the throttle sooner without as much danger of power oversteer. Want you to be on the throttle mid-corner, power through that apex. The apex is here. It isn't mid-corner. The apex is here, right? So power through that. Plan to go wide. Not too wide, but plan to go wide. You'll carry good speed. Don't over-rotate. This is a spot where a lot of people experience oversteer when they get on the throttle. So don't over-rotate the steering wheel on exit. Open it up. Guide it out of this corner, okay? What that looks like on the actual track. Then heavy on the brakes here very briefly. Let that compression happen. Get down to second. Get down to first. And then on the throttle by here, you want your left tires on the yellow. You want it nice and tight like that because you can get on the throttle so much sooner that way. And then pull out of this corner. Bam. Out we go. Okay? Alright, last two corners here. The visualizer can help us a little bit here. I'm going to park it right. So I'm looking for this moss on the right side. I want to be on the throttle, or sorry, on the brakes before I get to that moss on the right side on the concrete there. It's not a perfect representation of what we're trying to do exactly because there's not the same amount of distance between the two curves, but we can use the visualizer to depict this slightly. So the key is when we get to this point, we stay close to the right. We're not trying to be way out here. We're trying to be close to the, I said right, close to the left on this part right here. We can't be out here because that's going to compromise our entrance. Really, one of the key things is carry speed through this apex. I was trying to do this. I wasn't doing it as well as I wanted to. If you can be at your slowest right at this point, just after this first turn, that's going to help a lot because it means that you've gotten the car pointed more in this direction out here, which is going to help you with this widen this turn and get on the throttle. Look, we know how important this turn is. The wider you can enter it, the better. That means being patient in this area right here, okay? That means patient being right in that spot, okay? So let's look at that on the actual track. Braking in a straight line heavily through here. Down to second, down to first. This is what I mean. Go right through here, patient through this part. At your slowest, no later than this part. Back up to second gear on the throttle, get it around like this. and on the throttle by this point. Maybe not fully, probably not fully, because the car won't like that, but you're on the throttle, gaining traction, and then you can pull out of this corner just like that, monitoring the power oversteer. And that's a lap guide here at Trial Mountain. And that's going to do it for this edition of Led's Lap Guides. Please give this video a like, and if you aren't a subscriber already, please become one so you can continue to get helpful videos like this one and stay up to date on all the live streams, shorts, and videos that we put out on a regular basis. We'll see you real soon, friends.